Welcome to Focus Out and About, the programme where we talk to people about a variety of topics. This episode is part 3 of a 4-part series on Butser Ancient Farm, an archaeological research site. We spoke to director Maureen Page and first asked her what discoveries they had made about life in ancient Britain.
We've discovered loads of things because, generally speaking, people don't understand how Iron Age, Celts, Romans, Neolithic man, how they used to do the everyday things of life. And I think that's really, really important that we understand how they lived. So one of the very, very first experiments that was done at Butser Ancient Farm was to try and understand how the fire and the smoke was controlled within a house. And at that time, when the farm first started, archaeologists believed that they had to have a hole in the top of the roof, a top of a roundhouse roof like this one, to let the smoke out so that you could breathe inside the house, which sounds very plausible. And that was tried at the site, and Dr. Peter Reynolds, who was the director at the time, conducted the experiment. He built a house, he left a hole in the top of the roof and lit the fire in the bottom. Now, as a vortex, because it's a cone, when you light the fire, the hot air is always looking for somewhere to get out. So it shoots up to that hole, and the temperature around the edge of the hole got so hot that the roof ignited on its own and the roof burnt down. And we understand that that is actually what would happen, apart from the fact that if it was raining, the rain would come in the hole, the roof would start rotting from the top down. All those are minor problems in the fact that actually it would burn down before you got to any of those situations. So we don't believe there would have been a hole in the roof. We think that actually to control the fire in the house, and we have plenty of evidence that fires were usually in the middle on the floor in a roundhouse, the smoke rises, goes into the cone part of the roof and then gradually trickles out through that thatch. And as it's doing that, it's doing several jobs. One is to help to preserve the timbers, because smoke is a preservative, to preserve the timbers and also the thatch. But also it trickles out through the straw, and while it's doing that, it's stopping insects wanting to live there, because insects don't like smoke. And if there's no insects in the roof, birds won't come along and pull the roof apart to try and eat those insects, so the roof is left alone, which means our roof stays in one piece. The evidence, we only ever build from evidence here. So for everything we have done, every experiment we have done involves looking at something we have found in an excavation. So for a house, for example, for the house behind me, we have found, when it was excavated, the archaeologists that excavated it produced a report and produced a picture of what was found in the ground at that excavation. And we work from that evidence, from that data, and we interpret what the marks in the ground mean. We find very little other than marks in the ground, to be honest, because it's such a long time ago and most of the materials that these houses are built of would rot away. But that is a learning thing, and that is something that it's really important that people understand. The people that lived in these houses didn't leave lots of rubbish around to be a blot on the landscape after they had gone. Unfortunately, we need to learn from that, because we're going to leave lots of rubbish around when we go. Plastic is going to take millions of years to disintegrate. But these things disintegrate on their own, they rot away, and what we are left with are the marks in the ground. And then we interpret them and we try and understand how those walls could have been built, how the house would be really strong. And if you go inside, you'll see that the timbers that are supporting this house are dug into the ground. They are oak tree trunks, they're very strong. The joints around the top, they're very simple joints, but they are very strong joints. Roundhouses are all constructed with circles in mind, and circles are a very strong shape. And the cone on the roof, again, is a very strong shape. So these houses will be wonderful in a storm. They're not going to fall down in a hurry. They were, yes. The only thing that we can put our hands up to is using a chainsaw to cut the really big pieces, not because we couldn't do it with a saw, but because of the time that it would take. Everything else was done using traditional methods. We thatch ourselves, and the thatch is tied on. It's almost a sewing mechanism, and it's tied on with a natural fibre. So it's almost sewing it onto the roof, so it's very strong. It's not going to come off in strong winds. The timbers are all put up and jointed here by ourselves, and then the walls are wattled and daubed, so we do that ourselves.